and welcome to this episode of ArtsAbly in Conversation. My name is Diane Collin. I am a woman with short hair, blue eyes, and glasses, and today I wear a light blue top. Behind me are an electronic piano and white shelves with books. This series presents artists, academics, and project leaders who dedicate their time and energy to a better accessibility for people with disabilities in the arts. You can find more of these conversations on our website, artsably.com, which is spelled ArtsAbly.com. Today, ArtsAbly is in conversation with Susan Farrell, a choir director, a musical director, and conductor of several choirs in Edmonton in Alberta. You can find the resources mentioned by Susan Farrell during this episode on ArtsAbly's website in the blog section.
My name is Susan Farrell, and I'm the artistic director of the Braille-Tone Choirs. So the Braille-Tone Music Society has 3 different choirs. So we have the Braille-Tone choirs for adults, a semitones choir for kids and youth, and we also have a ukulele choir, and we also have a music lesson subsidy for people with disabilities who want to learn an instrument on their own. I think in our society it's easy to overlook people with disabilities for needing to have programs like this, but it's an incredible thing when you see folks come out to programs like this, like Braille-Tones and semitones. You just see that everybody needs a place to be themselves and to express themselves and to be able to be creative with other people and find their voice. There's a place for everybody in this organization, so don't feel shy to sign up and come check us out.
Welcome to this new episode of ArtsAbly in Conversation. Today I am with Susan Farrell, who is a choir director, a musical director, and a conductor of several choirs in Edmonton in Alberta. Susan, welcome.
Thank you, Diane. It's great to be here.
Thank you for joining us. So you have a very active life in Edmonton right now. I know that you are the artistic director of the Braille-Tones and also the Semitones Children's Choir, also music director at St. Paul's United Church. You are conducting other choirs. We're going to discover that today. So you're doing a lot with children and with adults. And before going to what you're doing right now, I am very interested in what brought you to all that and how you became the choir director and conductor you are today. So what is your background?
Right. So I started with the Braille-Tones in 2010, I want to say, because I had done my master's at the University of Alberta in choir directing and choral conducting. And I'm originally from Nova Scotia, but I had come here for my master's. And I was kind of at a crossroads, like I didn't have a one job lined up that was gonna, cover my career. It was just, I was working at a bakery and trying to figure out what choirs I was gonna do and get some experience. And I had this opportunity to work with the Braille-Tones because Carmen So, who's a conductor and teacher here in Edmonton, is a friend of mine through Corora Choirs. And we sung together in Oran, which is the adult choir. And she was looking for someone to kind of start helping out with the idea of maybe taking it over eventually. And I said, well, I don't know anything about Braille-Tones or about conducting folks with disabilities. I don't have any experience, but I'm willing to learn. Let's try. And so I came on for a year and kind of got my feet wet. But I felt out of my element. I didn't know, and one of my professors who had great intentions and that kind of thing, she said, how do you conduct a blind choir? You know, because her whole thing was like with your gestures, because that's what we worked on for 2 years, was concentrating on how you move your arms and your hands so that your singers reflect what you want. But it was like this whole new way of learning for me, and I really loved it, and it was a big challenge for me to go outside that box, but I ended up taking the group on my own the next year from Carmenzo 2011, and the choir was so patient with me as I figured things out and kind of let go of some notions I had about how perfect something had to be, and seeing how we could make progress in new ways, like engaging a singer in a different way, or finding the way that works to teach that one singer who has a different need. And the challenge was actually really wonderful, and I kind of got back to the heart of what choir music was after being so very technical in my master's, which was helpful, but also I got into choir in the first place because of the heart and soul of it. And so once I can kind of like revive that part of myself, it was a lot easier to go there. And so that's kind of how I started with the Braille tones.
Okay, but I want to go back to the masters. So
Okay.
you were in choral conducting
Mm-hmm.
studies, right?
Yeah.
What did you, why? When did you decided
Oh,
to go to, okay, I'm gonna be a conductor?
a good question. Well, I joined a choir when I was like 9. I joined the Pictou District Honor Choir in Nova Scotia, and I had the best time. I was like the keenest of all the keen choir singers, and I had a group of all my friends were in choir with me, and um, when I was looking at what I was going to do in university, uh, I was like, well, I think I want to do choir. Like I want to keep doing this, and I realized, oh, I'll have to get my piano skills up to snuff. So I kind of changed piano teachers and got a bit of piano experience and enough so that I could do an audition, and ended up at Mount Allison University in New Brunswick, and just like really loved singing in the Elliott Chorale at that university, and met like some of my friends from choir from high school were also there. Scott Jones and Laura McLean, and these folks who are still working in the arts, and I just that was kind of where my motivation for being in music studies at all was to do this choir singing thing. And the piano the piano learning was great. I learned a lot of skills, but also I was like a mess when it came to performing. I would just my legs would be shaking, my hands would be shaking, and I knew this wasn't what I wanted to do. I was happy to teach, but the performing piano was not for me. And then I got in front of a choir, like in my third year. Like you don't do choral conducting till maybe third year or fourth year. And I was like, oh, this is comfortable, because I was not facing the audience anymore. I had all this amazing energy coming to me from the group, and I was no longer nervous. I was just in it. I was making the music. I was doing the thing together with the people in the choir, and that was when I was like, it kind of like a, you know, aha moment, right? So I never. And then when I looked at masters, I thought, well, I could do education and go back to my small town, Nova Scotia, and that could be it. Or I could try for this master's program in choral conducting and see. And so I got in, and the rest is history.
Well, it's interesting that when you do that kind of studies, you are learning how to, as you were saying, be perfect in your motions to conduct the choir. And in a way, in university, we learn perfection. We learn how to be perfect in our movements, how to be understandable for people who are directed. And then you have your kind of your experience here that you had, and you have to unlearn and relearn, right?
Yes.
So that's
Yeah,
very interesting how to switch, like change your own, all the whole years of educations to be able to discover a new territory.
absolutely. Yeah, and think outside the box. And I know I had one of the Braille tones who had been there for a long time. It was 2 or 3 years into me leading the group, and he'd been there for a decade probably. And he said, I really like it when we don't take ourselves too seriously. So, and he was like an excellent bass singer. He got everything like the second time round. Like he could be in a like an excellent choir that's doing like the highest standard of things that way. But his goal was to connect with others and to have like a musical experience that was satisfying um, and yeah, connecting him with other people. I don't know how else to say it, but just and that was kind of another one of those moments of, okay, this is what we're going for. These are our goals. Just like readjusting your lens on it. So
What is the story of the Brill Tones exactly? When was it created?
yeah, so the Braille Tones was started in 1996. The same year that Corora choirs were started, actually, and by the same person. So Scott Leithhead started it, and he was approached by somebody from the Institute for the Blind in Edmonton because they had a conversation group, like a Toastmasters kind of group that still happens. It's happens on Sunday mornings still, but they wanted to also have a choir, and so Scott came in and started doing like just Saturday morning rehearsals where it would be right after the Toastmasters group, and they would sing for an hour, and they started off with like unison, and then they would do two parts, and then he brought in some of his young singers from Corora Choir to do like section leading, so then they could sing in four parts because they had these leaders, and then they started welcoming people from with other disabilities. So it started off with visually impaired folks, and then it started expanding. I don't know how that exactly happened, but it kind of happened naturally, I guess. And then he did it for a number of years, and then his student, Carmen, took it over before I did. So that's the history.
And
And we
how,
still have people in the group who were there in '96.
oh,
Like
wow,
maybe four singers out of 25.
that's amazing.
Yeah.
Carrying the history of the of the Brill Tones.
Yeah. And they still remember like a bunch of the songs they did. Like I remember their part. It's amazing, like just the history and the lore with rail tones.
How big is the choir?
We have about 25 singers in the adult choir. That's pretty consistent. That's including the four section leaders.
And what is your process of learning and conducting them, working together?
Yeah, so like I said, we have those section leaders who are very essential to making sure everybody gets kind of what they need out of the experience. Um, so they're responsible for the folks in their section, and we try to provide so rehearsal tracks as much as possible for our pieces because we do sing in four parts. We try to do a word booklet with just the words. And I try to do like a coil bound one that's good for the whole year. Hopefully, we don't add other pieces, but obviously that can happen. I do like enlarged scores as well. Some of our folks with visual impairment have like an iPad or a tablet. They can just change the font size themselves. So I'll send out PDFs as well of either the music or the lyrics. We have the actual scores and enlarged options. And then, yeah, whatever, if things come up, I know there are some folks who will write stuff out for themselves in Braille at home. I would say out of the whole choir, probably a quarter of the choir has visual impairment, so it's not the whole choir. And I often get the question, oh, what's Braille music look like? And I would love to know more about Braille music, but we have traditionally learned by rote, and it's worked quite well. We do a lot of repetition. I kind of start back at the beginning, do you know what I mean? Like with a song several weeks in a row for that repetition, and try to do it from a slightly different angle or try to keep it interesting, but we do like take our time to learn so that it's really, and I try to, and my music choices are very intentional with repeated lyrics, or sometimes I think we've done about every choir piece that has an ooh or an ah chorus or that kind of thing, just to try to keep it simple with the text. So it's challenging, but not too challenging that it's not um, approachable. Um, and we try to sing like quality choral music as well as some pop stuff, but good arrangements. And we also have like our accompanist is an arranger as well, Caitlin. So she's done a number of things for us that way. And if we're having trouble with something, she could rewrite a piece. So all those things come into play. Yeah.
Plus, you seem to have fun.
Yeah, we do. We have so much fun. And it's hilarious. I think about like, not to say we didn't struggle during the pandemic, we did. But I had incredible attendance on my Zoom rehearsals on Saturday morning. Like I had probably 25 singers often online because it's accessible is one thing, right? Of course, nobody had to leave their house. Um, but also people were just so happy to hear each other, see each other, like listen to some music together, sing a bit. But like it was the community is just so strong. It's amazing. Yeah.
And you also have, so you talked about the Corora community choir, and I think you're leading two choirs over there,
Yeah.
also children and adults.
Yeah. So I do Tamariki, which is the youngest group, age 5 to 9. Um, and my two kids are in that with me, which is pretty fun. And so yeah, I started that 2 years ago. Um, but I've been doing assistant directing for Oran for like 12 years or so. And that's the adult choir that's after Corora. So yeah.
What's the particularity of these choirs? What kind of repertoire are you singing with them, or make them sing?
Yeah. Well, Tamariki is, typical kind of kindergarten to grade 3 music. So we're doing like Kodai based teaching. Um, Amy Voyer and I are the two directors, and so she's a music teacher in school. So I get a lot of my inspiration from what she does. And so we sing at the Christmas concert in the spring, and we did like a song called Thunder and Lightning this year in the spring, and we get to sing with the other choirs as well in the organization. There's like 300 singers overall in the whole Corora Choir Association. Um, and then Oran does more like Divisi, SSAATTBB, kind of like larger works and more challenging stuff. We're a higher level choir and we do tours, and we were in Yellowknife this year, and we've been to Podium a couple of times performing as well. So yeah.
Awesome. Wow, what a life.
Yeah, it's very full and very wonderful. I feel very fortunate, absolutely.
Can you talk about your role as a director of music at St. Paul's United Church?
Yeah. So I lead the music there with Tyson Kerr, who's my um, organist and pianist. So I've been doing that again for about that same number of years, 13 years. Um, and St. Paul's is a great church to work at. Like it's an affirming congregation. And my kind of goal with them lately has been challenging that affirming um, designation. I don't know if you've heard of that before, but it's affirming of gender and sexual diversity. I don't have the list in front of me, but there's a number of things it's affirming of. Generally, we've been focusing on the gender and sexual diversity piece, which is obviously incredibly important, especially these days. But there's equally important parts in there of ability, affirming of all abilities, affirming of all ages, races, cultures. Like there's a list of things that the affirming designation in the United Church signifies. And my challenge to them in the last 2 or 3 years has been to say, okay, so we say we're affirming of all abilities, but why is there no button on the door to get to the elevator? Why does somebody have to hold a door and why do we have these fire doors that aren't automatically shut at time of fire, they have to be always shut. They can't be open. You know, like these, like, as a wheelchair user, you know about all of these places that say they're accessible, but are they really? You know, that kind of thing. So that's my little challenge to the St. Paul's church these days. And they've been very gracious, and we've been working together, and their elevator is beautiful and brand new, and our space that, and Braille Tones rehearses there is the other part of me being very passionate about it, because I see it week to week, the challenges that come up. So we rehearse in the large basement room that's all been newly renovated in 2020. So it's a lovely big open space, and so yeah, I love working there. We have a great team, and they're very receptive of my kind of focus on disability rights and that kind of thing. So
I was going to ask about exactly that topic, the accessibility of the places of your performers. Um, when you are performing with ensembles, with individuals with disabilities, you have to make sure that the different venues are accessible. And so, what is your process in finding these venues? Are you always performing in the same venues, or are you changing, trying to do tours or something like that?
yes, we haven't done many tours. I would love to do some more in the future, but basically, the majority of our performances right now do happen at St. Paul's United, because we know the space. People are used to it. It's not. It's like that issue of accessibility, of course, of actually entering the building and getting to the performance space, and also having like accessible washrooms available, enough of them, and St. Paul's fits those criteria. Um, there's that, and that the performers could get onto the stage, like with a like the stage in the sanctuary, but up on a ramp. That's important to have for us. And now when we've gone to other places, so we also did a concert at, and I talked about this in our podium session. We were talking about accessibility, because we had a concert at the Stanley Milner Library downtown Edmonton, which is has been newly renovated in the last number of years, and they have a beautiful theater in the basement that's accessible by through the parking parkade and through an elevator that works well, and there's accessible washrooms, and the audience is accessible as well as the stage. So that was important to me, because what happened, so we had our dress rehearsal in that space, and it's a goal for us, if we're going to be in a new space, that we have this opportunity to have a dress rehearsal there like a week in advance or a few weeks in advance, so that anybody with accessibility needs can try it out. But also in the with the idea of like neurodiverse folks in the choir, anybody on the autism spectrum, anybody with anxiety, like anything like that, they can be there on a non-concert day to get the lay of the land, to feel like they know what to expect. And so that's really important to us. So we had the dress rehearsal March 9th this year, and March 16th was supposed to be our concert. And we got out all the bugs. We figured out, everybody was, on time, that kind of thing. We figured out that the public transportation worked to get there and all that. And then by the time March 16th rolled around, there was an impending labor disruption. Like they were supposed to have a strike, the library workers. So they canceled our concert, our booking, March 14th or March 13th, something like that, a few days before. And so we had this option to go to a different venue, because we already, like, the band was booked. Like we had Michelle and friends, our local children's entertainers, booked to do this concert with us, and they're busy musicians, and they don't have a whole lot of flexibility. So we thought, oh, maybe we can try another venue, but it had to be downtown because we had the specific grant to do a downtown concert, downtown Edmonton, with a certain radius of area that we could be in. Um, but the other venues that we found, um, if you sometimes you could get on the stage, but you couldn't be in the audience. And I thought that was really um, like counter, our themes to be able to have our performers on stage but not have a wheelchair user in the audience. Like that doesn't seem like it makes any sense. And these were like newer venues in Edmonton. I don't understand how that is still a thing. Um, and there's like a number of churches, but again, like not being able to get onto the stage often. Um, and just to have that quick turnaround with our population we have in our choir, like not being able to do a dress rehearsal, it just seemed way too rushed. And the granting agency, like the city of Edmonton, who was giving us the grant, said, "You can change the date. That's fine. But we'll work with it." And so we ended up picking a date in April, where we had two of the three band members, and they had to find a new drummer. But it was important for us to be, and then we could rebook the library space that we had already tried out, and that was just absolutely the best decision. But it was hard, It's like people asking you to pivot so quickly, but it's like you have to take care of your population in your choir. And I'm glad we made the decision we made. I think it will inform kind of other situations that could come up in the future. But that's a long-winded answer to your question, but yeah, that's kind of the challenges we've come across.
That's a challenge that every choir who works with individuals with disabilities or simply has individuals with disabilities in their regular choir, they deal
Yes.
with. And um, in the number of years I've worked with choirs and I've sung with choirs, I always had this conversation at some point with the people in charge and saying, okay, so here is what I need. But I know that a lot of people um, are sometimes shy. Sometimes they don't think of talking with the people who are making the decisions, and sometimes some bad decisions are made. But then we learn.
Mm-hmm.
Then we learn. We grow up together. We decide, okay, next time we do it better. We know exactly what we did wrong. Um, and so that's what I like in the idea of growing together and discussing these topics. But the discussion needs to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And there is not a lot of choirs, you know that very well because you're leading one. There is not a lot of choirs that are really focused on individuals with disabilities and trying to um, talk with the venues and discuss that topic and saying, how come you are a new venue? You did all the work. How come you didn't make the stage accessible? Oh, oh yeah, but for us, accessibility is for the audience. Well, not only.
Yeah, exactly. Or the opposite. We had a venue that had accessible stage but not accessible seating or like audience. It's wild. Anyway,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, and this really goes to my next question, which is with the years you spent working with choristers with disabilities, what does it mean for you to work in disability arts?
Yeah, it means so much, and it's a great question. I've been thinking about this lately about um, what access points we provide for members in our groups. Um, and like you said, I don't see it as just a Braille tones thing. Like with all of my choirs, I'm thinking, are we being as accessible as possible? Are there bursaries like in my choirs that have fees, which Braille tones does not have fees? That's an important accessibility piece for us too, because I know it's expensive have a disability and that kind of thing. That it's important for us, and it's in our mission statement not to charge fees. Um, but in my choirs like Tamariki or Oran, um, that there are bursaries available for folks like that financial access point. and then other access points of like looking to see who has needs that we can meet, we can be proactive about, um, and those are, they can be learning needs, they can be physical needs. There's so much. Like honestly, working with Brailletones has just changed my whole perspective on like working with a group of people, I guess, or in the arts, because I feel like Brailletones is an exaggerated version in a way, like where there's a lot of needs, but in any group you would have individuals who have things that come up. Like I think, you know, somebody could break their leg and need crutches, and then how are they going to get on stage? Like we should be thinking about this ahead of time, all the time. So I just love having that perspective opened to me, because I just feel like you are seeing the people in your groups as individuals and as important. Uh, each person is important. And I've seen this happen like in, like I talked about my master's, and it's so easy to see the choir as your instrument, you know, because you're focusing on how to make this instrument sound the way you want it to sound and that kind of thing. But that's not what a choir is to me. It's a group of individuals that are coming together to produce this art, and the more we can connect individually, the better art we make. I think it's just like a win-win. But sometimes we, like without Brailletones, I might not have come to that kind of realization as quickly. So I'm very grateful for that, and grateful to have that accessibility lens on all of my groups.
Very good. Well, do you have what are you working on right now? Is there any specific project you are trying to accomplish, or a concert that is coming? It's the end of the season right now, so I guess you finished your season.
Yeah, we're on break now, but we're always planning for the next season. So I think we'll do another kids menu concert. That was the one that happened at the library last year, and uh, that's the second time we had done that format with Michelle and Friends, the children's entertainers. And so we'll do another one probably at the same venue because it worked out so well. And now that we kind of are used to that venue, I'd like to use it as much as possible, because it's a wonderful one. Because if you have a kids concert there, there's an amazing kids library. So families go to the library, come down and have the concert, go back to the library for a bit. They can grab a snack at the cafe. Like it's just a nice kind of Saturday afternoon event. And it was so successful. We had the biggest audience we'd ever had for a concert. So I'm really looking forward to doing that again. And just also, I think with the idea of spreading the word about spreading the disability joy. Have you heard that expression before? Like just that kids can see like a group of folks who are making music and having fun, and realize that like, it's a joyful thing, anybody, it's a, how do I say it, but just anybody can do it, and just to have that exposure, because I don't think I had that exposure as a kid. I think it's so important. I just feel like it makes a better world. So that is a real outreach thing that I'm focused on, is that one concert. But then our other concerts will have a guest choir from Edmonton called A Joyful Noise. They're going to sing with us at our May concert, and they are a really cool choir with a strong community as well. And their whole thing is they cater to folks who can't carry a tune in a bucket. I don't know if you've heard that expression before, but people who come to choir kind of with the feeling like, I don't know if I can really sing. I've always been told I can't. Like somebody told me when I was a kid that I should just mouth the words. That kind of, trauma that people bring into a choir situation, and then they had this joyful experience in the choir. It's a lovely community, and we've always had good connections with them, so I'm glad to, plan for that concert together in the spring. And yeah, those are our main big things that are coming up.
You also did a silent disco a few days ago, right?
Yeah, that was our very first fundraiser we had held, and it was so fun. Um, and silent discos, I don't think are huge in Canada yet, but I'm hoping that we can bring it to Edmonton to be a regular event. We'll see. We had to rent the headphones from the States, but they're amazing. It's like these it's sensory friendly dance event. So everybody gets a pair of headphones, and depending on what color it's blinking, you have a different playlist. So there's three playlists. Like one was like a kids one was a upbeat adult one, and one was more of a chill vibes one. And but you could see across the room if somebody had also had a red color, they would have the same playlist as you, and you could so you could be doing like YMCA actions, or the funniest one was the chicken dance, where people are doing, and in Braille tones we do like a described video of that, like beak 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 beak, flap 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 flap, wiggle 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 wiggle, clap 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 clap. So that was just funny to put on there. But yeah, it was such a cool event, the silent disco. So yeah, I would love to keep doing stuff like that.
That's a great way to just have fun together and do a little bit of activism because you then show a different side of music and also have a sensory friendly concert, which is or fun or event,
Yeah. And
which
it was
is
like people
great.
were up dancing if they wanted. There was kids, there's adults, everybody. But also there was like a room on the side that was like kind of a quiet room where you could have your headphones on or not. It's quiet. You know, if you don't have the headphones on, it's just totally silent, which is hilarious. But we had like large print crossword puzzle books, and people could just sit and chat with their friend or like do a little game or puzzle. Um, so there's like options, like you didn't have to always be up dancing. It was fun. It was a cool event.
Well, I have a last question for you,
Yeah.
and it's about people who might have inspired you or motivated you in your career, someone who made you accomplish what you really wanted to accomplish with your choral experiences and conducting experiences. If you had one person to think of or more, who would it be and why?
Yeah, so I definitely have two people I'll mention. The first one, his name is Scott Jones. I don't know if you've ever heard or met Scott Jones. So he and I grew up in Pictou, Nova Scotia together. We're in choir together. We were like big choir nerds. Had a group called the Bonnet Singers, like chamber choir and all that kind of thing. Did our undergrad together at Mount Allison University, best buds, and then I went to do my master's at U of A, and he went to Manitoba to do his. And then he came home for a year to Nova Scotia, and during that year, he was attacked, and he became a paraplegic. He's a wheelchair user now for life. A really tragic thing that happened, and feels like he was attacked for, and was attacked for his sexuality, like he's a homosexual male. But it was just such a terrible tragedy. But out of that came this like very positive campaign he did called "Don't Be Afraid," and so he went across Canada and did these presentations and talked about don't be afraid to be yourself, and having challenging conversations with folks who weren't necessarily on board with his message yet, but really changed a lot of people's minds and had those difficult conversations. And so he's been an incredible person to have in my life. Like I'm so impressed by him. Like he hasn't had an easy journey since 2013 when that happened. But he continues to work for disability inclusion now that he's part of that community himself. And one of my like aha moments again with disability and accessibility was when he was getting used to being in a wheelchair and or using a wheelchair and trying to go to a restaurant, and like in Halifax, Nova Scotia, right, where it's like a lot of old buildings, and they'd be like, yeah, it's accessible, but the bathroom wasn't, or there was a step to get in. And just like I couldn't believe all the barriers he had in a day, you know. and I thought this is not right. And so, um, yeah, I definitely think of him often and try to keep in touch. He's now like um, a playwright, screenwriter. He does short films, and there's one on Prime Video called Love Scott, which is about his journey. Um, and so yeah, and he's a choral musician as well. So he's behind a lot of what I do. I think I have a great love for that person. So yeah, Scott Jones, and then the other person who I love what she does, and I know well, is Alexis Hilliard, and she is our ukulele instructor with the Braille Tones, and she has a limb difference. So she was born with one arm and one stump, and so she has a YouTube channel called Stump Kitchen, and her whole thing is awareness around limb difference, and she does it in such a playful way, and in such a beautiful way. Like her thing now is doing like cosplay with her stump, so she'll dress it up or paint it in different characters, and she's been having like amazing success with that. It's really cool, and I just think what a way to create that awareness through such a beautiful, joyful, inclusive way. So she has an incredible, and I just am so happy to that we get to work with her and through Braille Tones as well. So yeah, those are two people that came to mind right away.
I think I will post on ArtsAbly's website on your resource page a link to her YouTube channel too.
Please do, yes, absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for this conversation. And I wish you a great summer and a great new season when start are you starting back in September, right?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, with all your choirs and all your projects.
Thank you. You
And
too.
yeah, I'm pretty sure we will see each other very soon again.
Absolutely. Thanks, Diane.
Okay, have a great day.
You too.
Bye.